we go to the second half of his speech, the second part, where he answers those who wanted to know, what does this mean? And this is where we will take the lesson for today. Now, we won't look at the reactions to Peter's speech first. We will look at Peter's speech. We go back to what we have just read. Keep in mind the fact that Peter is answering the question, what does this mean? What is the meaning of this outpouring of languages? What is the meaning that these Galileans who have not studied in our countries, who have not left their own homeland, how is it possible that they can speak in the different languages? And so Peter wants to explain that it is God who has poured out his Spirit. And so he begins with the story of Jesus. And so in his explanation here, we will look at his answers. First of all, he zeroes in on the person of Jesus. All right, this is in answer to the question. In answer to the question, what does this mean? And he zeroes in his first point on Jesus of Nazareth. He talks about the life of Jesus. Let us see what he says about Jesus of Nazareth. Look at those words again. Listen to these words, fellow Israelites. Jesus of Nazareth was a man whose divine authority was clearly proven to you by all the miracles and wonders which God performed through him. So he makes a statement that Jesus of Nazareth had divine authority, that God had sent him with authority, and he was proven. Jesus of Nazareth was proven to them. Through what? Through what things? Through the miracles which he performed. All right? Proven to them, which God performed through him. And you yourselves know this, for it happened among you. It happened in their midst. It happened among them. So this was not done in a corner. Please understand, Jesus' miracles were not performed in a small corner. The whole of Israel knew about his miracles. And then the third thing, what did Peter go on to say? In accordance with his own plan, God had already decided that Jesus would be handed over to you, and you killed him. You killed him by letting sinful men crucify him. So the third thing that he talks about is that God's plan, all right? God's plan for Jesus. God's plan for Jesus. What was that plan and what did it involve? One. What was God's plan for Jesus? Number one, it says here that Jesus would be handed over to them and they would kill him. Plan for Jesus, handed over to them. They would kill him. Thirdly, what would happen to Jesus? All right? Sinful men will crucify him. Sinful men would crucify him. Now, I want us to understand here, handed over to them. This is recalling the incidents when Jesus was on trial and he was handed over to the Jews. But the Jews couldn't pass the verdict of death. Pilate had to pass the verdict of death and they would kill him. Sinful men would crucify him. Who were the people who crucified Jesus? The Roman soldiers. It was in the hands of the Roman soldiers, the Gentiles, whom the Jews considered as sinful men. Sinful men would crucify him. All right? Then he makes a clear-cut statement as to what God would do. God's plan for Jesus, number 4, would include God raised him up. And notice, he doesn't argue about that. he just makes a clear-cut statement. God raised Jesus up. God raised up Jesus and set him free from death's power because it was not possible that death could hold him prisoner. All right? God raised him up. Death could not hold him. Death could not hold him. Now, so the first part here, he talks about Jesus of Nazareth. What happened? What does this mean? Why are you all able to speak with different languages? Peter takes the story back to Jesus of Nazareth. It all begins with Jesus. God had sent Jesus, and Jesus had been killed, and God had raised up Jesus. Peter doesn't give room for them to argue about how God raised him up. He makes it as a clear-cut statement. And this happens throughout the book of Acts. The resurrection of Jesus is declared, and there's no argument about it. Now the second part, he talks about David's prophecy. David's prophecy is quoted, and this is quoted from Psalm 16, verses 8 to 11. Psalm 16, verses 8 to 11. Now let us follow David's prophecy very closely. David had prophesied, I saw the Lord before me at all times. He is near me, and I will not be troubled. And so I am filled with gladness, and my words are full of joy. And I, mortal though I am, will rest assured in hope. Look at verse 27. The whole prophecy hinges on verse 27. Because you will not abandon me in the world of the dead, you will not allow your faithful servant to rot in the grave. You have shown me the paths that lead to life, and your presence will fill me with joy. Verse 27 is the key to this. Because you will not abandon me in the world of the dead, you will not allow your faithful servant to rot in the grave. Now, it is as though David was speaking about himself, but that is not true. David wasn't speaking about himself. How could he say that God will not allow him to rot in the grave? David was only a mortal human being. David was their greatest king, yes, but he was still just a human. So in verse 29, Peter explains about David. So David's prophecy is referred to, and now he talks about David's death and burial.